A very good afternoon to all of the guests that have joined us. Welcome to today's special event by Sibanye-Stillwater. Of course, not just alone, but collaborating with key partners with the Wits University and the University of Johannesburg. And today we're focusing on education and the role that the organization has been playing in terms of contributing to our educational institutions, but also making sure that the kind of work that is being done will be able to provide real-time, tangible guidance and development when it comes to the mining sector. Let me welcome the panelists that are with us today. To all of the guests, Dawie Mostert is to my left, maybe your right, depending on how your screen is set up. Keith Stead, hello Keith. Neal Froneman, hello Neal. Zeblon Vilakazi and Tshilidzi Marwala. Let me thank you all for being available for us today. And what we're going to do is we're going to begin with some of the formalities and have the official statements being made by Sibanye-Stillwater. We're then going to break away into a panel discussion. And this is where we're going to have a real opportunity to find out what the value of this project has been, especially from the universities, to also try and discover the kind of work that they've been able to achieve through this project. And you as the participants are also going to be able to join in those conversations. So just on the right hand of the screen, you will see there is a segment for you to be able to post your questions, to post your comments as this live event takes place. I see some of you have already started joining in. Raymond Durham, this saying, greetings all. Wits Geoscience is looking forward to a continued relationship with Sibanye-Stillwater. So Raymond, one of those that's leading the way. You can all add your comments to those conversations, your questions there. That's where we're going to be fielding them. That's going to be during the panel discussion. Just a quick reminder for those of you who are able to multitask and are still going to be on social media during this time, the hashtag that you're looking for is hashtag SSW, Sibanye-Stillwater Gateway to the Future. So hashtag SSW Gateway to the Future, all of it one word, and you can keep your comments under there. I'm not really great at multitasking, but I'm going to try and make sure that if there are comments that you put up on social media, I'll keep up with some of them as well, and they'll be part of the conversation here. Well, without further ado, let me officially then kick off today's program and welcome, just to give us some of, some of the official welcome to this event, Keith Stead. Keith, good morning. Okay, good afternoon. It's afternoon, not morning anymore. Keith, the floor is yours.
Yeah, Kathy, that was a bit of a Freudian slip. But Kathy, first of all, acknowledge you and say thank you very much for hosting us today and facilitating this session. It's quite a privilege to have you with us in the room. So in Sibanye-Stillwater tradition, we always start all sessions with a safety, values, and inclusivity moment. And it's become part of our culture. And today's safety moment is a sad one, because we need to pay homage to Chadwick Bessett, our EVP of our gold operations, who passed away last week due to COVID and pneumonia-related complications. And Chadwick was like a pillar, and it was a courageous leader that led from the front. And in paying homage to him, I honestly believe his motto of saving lives, saving jobs is very apt in terms of where we are with the COVID pandemic and also what we're trying to do here today. So as an organization, we strive to empower people in safe production. Empowered people in the context of safe production framework means ensuring that the required number of trained people with the right qualifications apply the relevant standards and procedures to work safely. As part of organizational growth, we've intensified our efforts across the group to review our organizational culture and leadership to ensure that safe production is inculcated as the foremost consideration in decisions at all levels within the organization. It will be a core strategic thrust over years to come. Among the several focused initiatives of the cultural transformation process, we have embarked on an entrenchment of behaviors associated with our values throughout the group. As a dynamic organization, inclusivity is a fundamental to our existence. People are created equal, but not the same. At Sibanye-Stillwater, we create an environment of involvement, respect, connection, where the richness of ideas, backgrounds, and perspectives are harnessed to create business value. I've now got the privilege of actually introducing our CEO this afternoon, Neal Froneman, and it's a special moment because I was a founder member of Sibanye, and so I've been on the journey with Neal since we started. So it's remarkable to reflect that nearly 8 years ago, we were unbundled from Goldfields with 3 relatively mature South African gold operations, Beatrix, Kloof, and Driefontein. And in less than a decade, we've transformed to rank amongst the world-leading precious metal producers. Beyond breathing new life into our founding humble gold operations and extending their lives beyond what was expected, we've established a leading presence on the world's PGM market through our 3 major acquisitions in South Africa, Aquarius, Rustenburg, and Wonman, and the acquisition of Stillwater in the United States. The last 7 years have been an exciting journey of strategic growth, with the company's market capitalization increasing almost tenfold since listing. We listed as a $1 billion or 13 billion rand, depending where the rand is today, South African gold producer in 2013, and now in 2021, it should be. We are leading global precious producers with a $10 billion US dollars or 166 billion rand market capitalization. So I'm very pleased to welcome our CEO. And Neal, I'm going to get a little bit of a dig in here, who likes to be referred to as the Chief Enabling Officer, not the Chief Executive Officer, who's led this remarkable success. So please join me in welcoming Neal.
Thank you, Keith. And I just want to say we all being challenged today with some IT issues. So if I happen to lose the connection, I've asked Dawie Mostert to please continue with what I plan to present. But first of all, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Professor Vilakazi, the Vice-Chancellor of the University of the Witwatersrand, Professor Marwala, the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Johannesburg, other dignitaries, a very warm welcome. And I'm very pleased that we can host this today. The mining industry and associations supporting mining in South Africa continue to represent the engine driving the country's economy. In addition to providing substantial exports and foreign exchange, it generates employment opportunities for many South Africans, with many local communities highly dependent on mining activities for their social and economic well-being and, of course, their development. South Africa remains rich in mineral resources, although it's a reality that many of these resources will only be brought to book through significant advancements in technology and changes in mining methodology. As a result, we remain reliant on skilled technical staff, engineers, and mining engineers who must be provided by our universities. Complementing this, we have to continuously improve safety and sustainability, which means that we require more and more innovation, which in turn requires expanded research and development by our leading tertiary learning institutions. The COVID-19 pandemic, which we have tragically experienced during the past year, has further highlighted the need to modernize mining through harnessing appropriate technology. Remote working with de-densified operations has rapidly become our new way of working to operate safely with COVID-19, and many unexpected advantages have also become apparent. This puts a premium on highly qualified technical staff to support our operations as a digital-first organization. Sibanye-Stillwater has a long-standing strategic partnership with the Universities of Johannesburg and the Witwatersrand. This is evident in a long list of alumni hailing from these two institutions, including myself, who have pursued their careers at Sibanye-Stillwater and have contributed in a material way to our company's strategic growth. And Keith gave you a great outline of how that has happened since 2000. I look forward to the next few years where we expect this to be the case well into the future. In view of all these factors, we are mindful of the business imperative to maintain a strong pipeline of young talent, which is needed to sustain our industry into a bright yet challenging future. We have therefore gladly made the following significant investments since our inception as an independently listed company. The initial sponsorships commenced in 2014 for a duration of 3 years to the University of the Witwatersrand and Johannesburg to the combined value of 25 million, which was apportioned at 12.5 million per institution. The sponsorships were renewed in 2017 for a further duration of 3 years, and the combined value of that sponsorship was 30 million, in other words, 15 million rand per institution. For the period 2019 to 2020, from 2019 to 2022, a further sponsorship agreement over and above the anchor agreements of 10 million rand per annum was entered into the University of the Witwatersrand to fund the DigiMine research program. The cumulative commitments to these institutions made since 2013 therefore amounts to a total of 75 million rand. Very, very significant. I'm today therefore very happy to announce that we are not only renewing but also increasing our sponsorship for a further 3-year period to the value of 33 million rand, in other words 16.5 million rand per institution, and that'll commence in January 2021. So what is the primary aim of our sponsorship? And clearly it's designed to assist both universities to provide, first of all, world-class education, learning and development of graduates who will not only play a leading role in the mining industry, but will also launch the industry into the fourth industrial revolution. It's also about increased research and innovation intensity to stay abreast of emerging technology themes and trends. It's about capital investment to expansion and maintenance in order to create infrastructure that is conducive and aligned to learning objectives. Sibanye-Stillwater is appreciative that a portion of the sponsorship will also be utilized towards special broader university projects aimed at improving the lives of students through greater student support. In addition to the direct development of the young professionals who are needed within the industry, Sibanye-Stillwater also recognizes the importance of maintaining the highest possible standard within our universities. Since inception in 2013, we've also been a proud contributor towards the Mineral Education Trust Fund, responsible for ensuring that universities are able to attract and retain the best possible teaching talent. Over and above the sponsorships to tertiary education, Sibanye-Stillwater has cumulatively awarded 1,493 bursaries and provided 1,141 internship opportunities for graduates since 2013. We remain committed to ongoing support of graduates who will be entering the mining industry. This additional support for learning and development aligns with the intent of our Sibanye-Stillwater Women in Mining Initiative. The Women in Mining Initiative aims to enhance the representation and development of women at all levels in our organization, with the objective of reaching a target of 30% of females in our workforce by the year 2025. A stream of highly qualified female graduates is needed to serve as role models for female participation as leaders in a modernized mining industry. This represents a major factor in securing the demographic transformation that we are striving to achieve. I'm pleased to report that in 2020, over 30% of Sibanye-Stillwater bursars and interns were females, very consistent with and a notable start to achieving our goals of better representation of females within our organization. The historical reasons for the chronic underrepresentation of women in the mining industry is generally understood. But as we have come to realize, attracting and retaining women in the modern mining industry is a more complex endeavor. A lot of work is going into understanding the psychological, the cultural, and physical barriers that are constraining the entry of women into the industry at the moment. If we are to change the demographics of the industry in a sustainable manner, we will need the continued support of our partner institutions. To this end, and this is over and above what we're announcing today, we will be looking to our partner universities to explore innovative ways to attracting a greater proportion of females into technical curricula, and we do intend to announce appropriate incentives in this regard in due course as soon as we've worked it out with our partners. We are confident that our sponsorships and ongoing support will provide much needed value to the growth of both universities, and that they will continue to provide a significant return on investment for Sibanye-Stillwater and the mining industry at large. Sibanye-Stillwater, we are one. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Froneman. I think it certainly sets a context for today and why a project like this is so important, and perhaps also just looking at part of what has gone into it to make it the success story that I think ultimately you would want it to be. And just from what you're saying in terms of the more short to medium term investment that Sibanye will continue to do, it sounds to me that it's not just a 5-year dream, but it's a long-term investment that you've entered into, and it'll certainly perhaps bear even greater results over the coming 5, maybe 10 years, should it continue in the same steam that it has started in. Well, on that note, we're going to begin our panel discussion for today. And I'm going to invite just all our panelists, of course, to be part of this conversation. If you are not on the floor, I am going to ask you to try and ensure that your mic is on mute to avoid any feedback. And I will also be getting some of the comments from the delegates that have joined this conversation today. Maybe just some of the messages that they're sending through. Let me see there. Fred Cawood says, "This is cares. Thank you, Neal." And Nompumelelo Madonda says, "Well done to Sibanye-Stillwater for investing in building the future of the country through skills financing. Thumbs up to Meneer and team." I think, is it supposed to be Mr. or Meneer? I'm not sure. Maybe there's a joke at Sibanye where people call each other Meneer. I think I'll leave that one to the house. Nozipam, all for education and youth development. This is an interesting conversation. conversation for me. Big ups, SSW Gateway to the Future. That's, of course, the hashtag that we're using for today, and hashtag Sibanye-Stillwater. So if you have any particular questions to our panelists, I'll be taking them on that comment section rather, that all of you have started to use today. On that note, then, perhaps let me begin just with our panelists and asking around the importance of the project that we have today. And Neal, perhaps we can begin with you, but I think this is where the Vice Chancellors are also going to come in and weigh in quite handily. The importance of research and development, especially in the mining space. Why is it so important?
It's a very good question, and I think first of all we need to recognize that deep level underground mines are complex. There are many interconnected systems that require intense technical management to deliver the expected safety and health performance, operational efficiency, and minimal environmental impact. So that's the context in terms of which you have to consider research and development. But simply put, in the mining sector, the adoption of new technology will create a safer environment, number one, for our employees, and at the same time allowing us to yield maximum value from the extraction of our resources in a way which creates the least disruption to the environment. And unless we are able to create value, we're not able to provide funding for sponsorships like this, and to fund our social and labor plans and so on. So value creation is critically important to all of us, because it results in the benefits that you're seeing today. So this is for the benefit, value creation, that is for the benefit of all our stakeholders. It's not just shareholders. And here you see exactly how we take profits and utilize them. We also need to reduce the net inputs. In other words, we need to reduce the consumption of power, water, energy in general, and increase the net output of our operations. So it's all about efficiency as well. And of course, that is all important in terms of long-term sustainability. And Kathy, when you said, we hope that this is sustainable and ongoing, we think in decades in the mining industry. So I'm really hopeful that this business will far outlast me, and hopefully continue providing the sort of value that we're experiencing today. Improving safety towards zero harm and significantly reducing our environmental risk and impact is another reason why research is critically important, and why we put so much into it. In a nutshell, of course, I think the other panelists will have different aspects that they may want to pick up on. But simply put, from a business perspective, that is why we fund research, and why we need to do research as the mining industry.
Let me bring in the universities then, and this is the part where I think I'm going to go. There we go. The UJ Vice Chancellor, Prof. Marwala. He's already unmuted his phone, so you get first dibs. You've helped me. You have unburdened me. Go for it, Prof.
No, thank you very much. I think it is quite evident that mining is still a significant contributor to our national wealth as measured by the GDP. About its contribution is about 8%, and it accounts to almost 20% of investment in South Africa. So it is a very important industry, and it's an industry that requires quite a great deal of modernization. If I was just to use simple metrics the amount of semiconductors in the mining industry, you will realize that that amount is fewer than what you would find in an automotive industry, and so on and so forth. And part of the reason, obviously, is because mining is hard. The temperatures are not normal. The noise levels are not normal. So technologies that have been developed to work over the ground do not work as effectively under the ground. Things deteriorate much faster because of the humidity of the mines. And all these questions can only be answered via research and development. And we also know that it's not necessarily as safe. It has become safer over the years, but there is an increasing need for automation to take our mining industry into the fourth industrial age. And the robots that have to work underground are more complex than the robots that work in a cleaner environment, because the environment is simply not predictable. So the fact that we have to dig deeper and deeper in some instances in order to get much richer ores is also something that requires us to create knowledge to be able to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Professor Marwala. Professor Vilakazi.
Thank you, Kathy. Good afternoon, colleagues. I think both Neal and Tshilidzi have covered some ground in terms of why we do research. But I think I'll start by forecasting based on the report that was published by Citibank a few years ago. In fact, that's almost 10 years ago. And if you factor in the time value for money, therefore that number might even be higher. That South Africa has mineral wealth reserves of about $2 trillion that is underground. Obviously, they've become inaccessible. And therefore, Kathy, you mentioned about guidance earlier on. I've always been fascinated by navigational systems. So before one embarks on a long journey or navigates the seas or even the heavens now, you need to do research first and determine what is the most optimal pathway to go from A to B. We know what the problem statement is. It is that we need to access those infinite reserves, relatively speaking, that will unlock wealth and, of course, catapult South Africa to the next level of being a country that is able to harness and access and to harness and add value to the products that are its natural endowment. And to do that requires us to do research, to think through them carefully, covering not only just pure engineering itself, mining engineering. This is a very convergent field of exploration that will take the best of us, not just one university, two great Johannesburg universities, leading engineers and scientists across the entire spectrum of disciplines and fields to think and work out solutions in a safe and productive way of extracting those resources that Prof. Marwala alluded to in terms of being deep underground, advances in robotics, the engineering of the deep level mines, management of all these technicalities that can present risk to us. This is to me akin to exploring the deeper space of our inner bowels of the earth, and that will unlock new knowledge and will obviously unlock wealth for our nation and broadly for the continent. So I think to me, without actually doing that study, that research, we'll not be able to unlock the wealth that is buried deeply in the bowels of the earth.
Thank you so much for that, Professor Vilakazi. And, there's just something that I wanted to build on, and you can just show me by way of raising your hand in terms of who actually wants to go for it. But Professor Marwala spoke about the fact that, these robots are going to be digging deeper than we ever have before. And automatically, if I was somebody in mining who was having to be in the mine, I'm thinking, shucks, so I'm literally going to be replaced by a robot. And of course, that's the conversation that's taking place in many industries. But, it means that a lot of the way in which things are done is going to need to transform, right? It's going to need to change. And as you embark on these exciting opportunities that technology presents, I imagine that there are also people who are looking at it with a bit of anxiety, saying, but wow, Neal, I wanted to be with you for the next 30 years, but it sounds like in 15 years, you might be swapping me out for a guy who can't taste coffee.
No, Kathy, listen, I understand that concern that people have or employees have. But I think first and foremost, the first steps in implementing technology are really more about digitalization of what we do at the moment. Very difficult to develop these type of machines overnight. There's no doubt they will be developed, but what it essentially does is it creates new industries, and net there are no job losses. Of course, the other positive aspect about digitalization and remote work, apart from the safety and health benefits, is that it requires a higher level of skill. So it gives us the opportunity for upliftment of employees. So if you look at it holistically, this is a great opportunity for everybody to grow and benefit. But I want to stress there's still a long way to go. And personally, I don't see job losses. I see jobs morphing into different type of jobs, maybe even in different. It's absolutely necessary to go down this path. Otherwise, we will lose our competitiveness as a country. But also, as Professor Vilakazi highlighted, there's trillions of dollars of natural resources that we would not be able to bring. Of course, by bringing them to account, everybody benefits from the value creation. So I wouldn't want people to be worried about it. It's smart, and we will all benefit and grow as this transition takes place. Thanks, Kathy.
All right, thank you for that, Neal. Still on the issue of human capital, Dawie, I'm going to come straight to you and talk about the importance here. This is especially of development of human capital in terms of technology and dare I say, Professor Marwala, don't judge me for this, the fourth industrial revolution.
Yeah, Kathy, thank you. And good afternoon to all the panelists as well. I want to start off by saying, in order to be digital first, what we need to get right is that balance between innovation and technology. And you can only get that right if you have a supportive operating culture. And it starts with people. And Neal will always say that our most important asset is our people. So we're not going to all of a sudden tomorrow ask all our people to either become a robot or to go and find another job, because that's not going to happen. But we are going to ask all our people to work with us, to become more innovative and to adopt these new technologies. And if we want to be successful with this industrial revolution 4.0, better we look at 5.0, because 5.0 is about the dance with technology. That's where we get our human capital, our people, to become innovative and to become excited about this new journey and this new opportunity, because what 4.0 brings are new jobs, new opportunities, and it will create therefore also new challenges and new problems for us to solve. But in this journey and on this journey, what we will do is we will not just think about new opportunities and new jobs. We'll also have to get it right to translate and in actual fact ensure that that translation will breach the gap between that hardcore technical know-how and knowledge and how we become better at what we do on a day-to-day basis. So from a human capital perspective, I think we live in the most exciting times to be able to cross that divide between the hardcore technical know-how and looking at ways and means to use digitalization and becoming not just digital smart, but ways to mine data better, ways to take better decisions and become more safe as an operator. Now, the next step on this journey is to sign up with the right partnerships, because we can't do this on our own. And I think the universities recognize that, they realize that, and it's making sure that the next line of attack from a mining engineering perspective would be people that are digital savvy and know and understand how to operate within that world. Thanks, Kathy.
You know, Dawie, as you're speaking, and I'm again thinking of some of the delegates that are listening in on this conversation and perhaps also agreeing on just on its importance. You know, of course, the company has a role to play when it comes to equipping individuals, but are there different ways of thinking that we can all be employing to ensure that we're all contributing and getting ready for what the future might look like?
Yeah, I think they are, but let me ask the professor to go first.
You can see both their hands up. Their hands went up immediately. All right, Professor.
Please go first, sir. Okay, thank you. I mean, you asked the question about the scenario of robots taking over our jobs, right? And Dawie mentioned the fact that you've got all these industrial changes, revolutions that are going to be coming to us at neck break speed. But to me, my view is that this is nothing new at all. I mean, if you look at around the 1890s, 1900s, and I'm sure when Carl Benz and Gottfried Daimler said, I've got a first auto, I've got a first car, the man, those days they were all men, I suppose, who owned these massive paddocks with stables and horses, must have been terrified. But those that were wise to convert this machine for better use were able to convert those paddocks into garages and start fleet management system of cars. So, so what was maybe a threat for those that were able to actually think quick and be nimble in adapting these technologies were the ones who were able to leapfrog and actually reap benefits of these changes. I think, Kathy, simply put, it's not about man against the robot, for the want of better word, excuse my language, or man against the machine. It's going to be men with machines against those who are men without machines. So you've got to live with that, contend with that future. It's a question of how, of course, there are moral, ethical issues around that in terms of this AI and robotics and quantum computing, which on their own have got no conscience of their own. Again, it is us as human beings. How do we harness these technologies? How do we ensure that we bring anyone on board? And we do that by changing the way we think, we teach, in terms of bringing as many people online as possible. Lifelong learning is going to be central. When you enter into a particular profession, you must see yourself as not retiring, doing the same job you're employed to do, or a profession you're employed to do. Flexibility, lifelong learning will be central in ensuring that you get as many people on board as possible.
No, thanks, Katie. It is clear that there are three things that are going to happen. Number one, some jobs are going to disappear, and we have to be prepared for that. Number two, some jobs are going to change. Mining engineers, existing mining engineering jobs are going to require much more digital savvy, much more than it has been the case in the past, which means the existing people will have to reskill themselves to be able to adapt to that change. Number three, new jobs are going to emerge. These are, there will be, robot maintenance and so on and so forth, jobs that don't necessarily exist, certainly on a massive scale now. So what do we have to do so that the balance of jobs that disappear against the new jobs that are going to emerge is going to be positive for society? We have to give our students, our graduates, education in its totality, which basically means education has become much more multidisciplinary today than ever before, because the miner of the future will be wearing clothes that are so connected, Internet of Things, to warn them when they are going to places that they are not supposed to go, that digital understanding of digital engineering and people, psychology of people will become very, very necessary. So what are some of these core skills that we need? I think people must understand artificial intelligence. They should understand robotics. It does not even have to be at the technical level, even at the understanding, because decision making in organizations, when we are at the world of work, is much more complicated to be left to few individuals. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Professor Marwala. Before I move on, I just wanted to check with the rest of the panelists. I'm not seeing any of them in picture right now, but I'm sure they'll bring them up again, that were all covered in terms of the contribution to that particular question that I had asked.
Kathy, if I might just make one.
Sure. Okay. Sure. Let me begin with you, Dawie. You've had your hand up for the longest time. Neal, I'll come to you in a moment.
Apologies, Neal. Just quickly,
okay,
I think
good.
for all this journey starts with an integral mindset. And it starts with our current people. It starts with the new people that we'll bring into this industry at the same time. And we have to adopt an approach which will say, what is the sum total of the total possibility, both in terms of human possibility, but also in terms of the capability that may not exist right now. So the more open-minded we are, look at what the possibility is, and changing that mindset, that organizational mindset, the sooner we will progress on this journey. So this is an exciting journey. It is a journey that will evolve. And at some threshold points, it will do a lot more than evolve. Because of the discovery that we will make. The last point I want to make is that it's amazing in our personal lives how we can't wait to upgrade our phones, how we can't wait to get either onto the next facelift of a new car or something that's better, because of the excitement that it brings to have more open and more connectivity. We need to bring that into the workplace, and we will be amazed what it can do for us. Thank you.
Neal, you can go ahead. Excellent example there, Dawie.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. I think what may not have come across clearly, although it was said, was the fact that going through these this innovation and research and development is not something that is the core business of an operating company like ourselves. It is certainly, in my view, the core business of the institutions that we are sponsoring, which is, and they are better placed to do the research and development. It's not our core business. Clearly, successful innovation, involves the end user as well. So I'm not saying it happens in isolation, but a very significant portion of our sponsorships are designed for universities and our partners to conduct research and development. That point was perhaps not as clear as it could be, and we've had some good successes. But I'll leave that to the vice chancellors to talk about. Thank you, Kathy.
And thanks for that, Neal. And on that note, I'm going to ask our two vice chancellors just to touch on briefly for me. I know I'm asking academics to be brief, so it might be a bit difficult. But just to touch on the funding that has been provided by Sibanye-Stillwater and how it has affected the research that you're doing as Wits and as UJ, and how you think it's going to affect the industry going forward. I know you've touched on perhaps what the future might look like, but certainly what purpose does that funding play today?
Thank you very much, Kathy. Firstly, I would like to thank Neal for this generous funding. I remember very well when we signed the first amount many years ago. So we have used this money to build a simulating facility where we are able to simulate a mine here on campus to facilitate what we call work integrated learning. That is basically teaching people through experience, theory, and practice integrated. They are able to do this. We use technologies such as virtual reality and so on and so forth. And so that amount of money has been put to good use. It has also given us the opportunity of introducing new subjects into our curricula, where we are introduce things such as laser scanning technology. How do drones come into the picture in the new form of mining? How do we use cameras to deal with issues of safety and so on and so forth? All these are subjects of research activities at the University of Johannesburg.
Thank you so much, Prof. Tshilidzi. Professor Vilakazi?
Yes, likewise, I also like to thank the Chief Enabling Officer, Neal, and his team for enabling us to actually do what we as universities need to do best. Most importantly, once we address those big questions, but creating that future, and the future starts now, and the future starts with the next cohort of people who are scholars, who are researchers, potentially also employees of Neal and other mining sectors in the country. So that foresight by Neal and team is very much appreciated. Just as an example, in terms of the human capital development that this has enabled us to achieve, is we have about 18 research publications, new knowledge that comes out of work, largely driven by a cohort of young students. 37 undergraduate students have done work through DigiMine. Right? We have completed 13 MScs and 5 doctoral degrees in an area where the number of doctoral degrees is limited. And doctoral degrees for research-intensive spaces are your spearhead of trying to understand where new knowledge frontiers lie, new innovations lie. So in that regard, the DigiMine has played a key role in helping us address, through research, contribution to mine safety and health, especially the use of sensor and digital systems to give advanced warning, something that Tshilidzi also alluded to as well, and manage all the safety and health risk. And secondly, I think it also has played a key contribution towards making the future, I would call it autonomous mine of the future, happen through the integration of data and the artificial intelligence system. So I think briefly, Kathy, you asked us to be brief, is what this support from Sibanye Gold has enabled.
In a moment, I'm going to start taking questions from the delegates that are joining this conversation online. Before we do that, though, there's an important issue, and Neal, you spoke about it, the issue around gender diversity and the need to bring more women into the industry. And, you know, this one can really be open again to anyone on the panel who wants to speak to it. And at Sibanye-Stillwater, you have the Women in Mining program, and that really speaks to your commitment towards supporting women in mining and the different initiatives that they would like to be part of. But just through the work that you're doing at the universities, to the two VCs, what has been the take-up of women in the research projects that you are involved in? And do you think that that's showing a change at all when it comes to achieving some level of gender parity?
Kathy, let me go first, but it would be good to hear the comments from the vice chancellors. Absolutely, I believe we're starting to see the results come through. There's still a long way to go. As I mentioned in my speech, you know, women graduates are now sort of at about a 30% level. Obviously, you know, the demographics of the country tell you that it needs to get to 50% for us to really say we've been successful. We've put a lot of effort into understanding what are the barriers, and in fact, we've set our targets of moving from about somewhere around 11, 12, 13% within our organization to 30% within 4 years now, in fact. And if you think about that's a huge jump. As the professors have said, you know, the implementation of digital technology and innovation in mining will be one of the factors that allows more women to enter the underground working environment, because it'll be easier, it'll be more remote from a working perspective. Of course, one of the challenges, and this is what we're good at as an organization, is understanding those cultural barriers, and then designing the mechanisms and the behavioral changes needed to really make it possible for women to not only participate but be inclusive. So we at the early stages, and we know what's required, and research and development is very much part of that. A stream of well-qualified female graduates is another portion of that, and that's where we're going to enter into the partners on how we can, in addition to the sponsorship today, enhance or incentivize that to happen. So I think from what I've said, you should certainly get a sense that we are sincere, we are committed, we have very specific goals in mind, and we understand the barriers well, and we have good initiatives in place to address that. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Neal. I saw some other hands had gone up. I'm not sure. There we go. Professor Vilakazi, you can go ahead.
I think Neal has covered most ground, but I think in terms of numbers, you know, we've gone up from 29 in 2019 to 36% this year. So the arrow is pointing in the right direction. And again, given the fact that in the 1990s, there were hardly any women at all. So that is over a period of just under 30 years in an industry that is, you know, as old as the city. So Kathy can tell that the numbers have really grown at a rate that is faster than the actual profession itself within South Africa. So therefore, we are going in the right direction. And secondly, as Neal mentioned, with these technologies, we are able now, they are able to reduce the physical entrance barriers that were a challenge, no matter how many people come through the system. but actually retention in the profession itself will not be greatly enhanced by the fact that we have these enabling technologies that breed that physical intensity factor and safety, of course, and many things that we spoke about. And of course, we'll talk about cultural aspects that are part of the re-education of the miner of the future.
Yeah, no, thanks. Our statistics also have around 30%. This is an industry that clearly needs much more gender transformation. Certainly, certain disciplines such as this require this. What we have seen, because obviously the mining industry is broad, so you have mining engineers, you have metallurgists, you even have chemical engineers, you even have mechanical, electrical, and so on and so forth. So the statistics that I would give, which is around just mining engineering, does not necessarily include all the possible people in these technical disciplines who are ultimately going to end up in mining, in the mining industry. So I actually started my career as a miner. I used to be a miner with a red ticket, and I must say that I am seeing that progress has been made, but it is certainly not adequate. And with the investment that has been put on the table now, we should be able to move to 40% by the end of this tranche of investment. Thank you.
Thank you all so much, and one certainly looks forward to seeing the kind of development that we're going to have, especially when it comes to matters of gender equity. It's an important part of the conversation that we can't afford to let fall by the wayside. Okay, so I'm going to now take the questions that our delegates are posing to you. Nompumelelo Madonda wants to know, does Sibanye-Stillwater conduct evaluation studies to measure outcomes and impact of their education support programs? We'll begin with that one. I think Neal or Dawie, maybe Keith, one of you might be able to take that one.
I would think, Dawie, you are best placed to answer that, but the simple answer is yes. But Dawie, you go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Neal. I was just struggling to get off that mute button. So, yes, we do. And it's not perfect yet. Keith will tell you that we are working a lot harder to get our learner management systems and our quality management systems to be best in class, so that we can track all the training and all the development from an impact perspective, not just from an individual perspective, but also what the impact is on the bottom line in the business, to ensure that there's alignment, that all the training and development is done to align to our succession plans, and to also ensure that change is looked after. So from a tracking perspective and from a quality management perspective, we ensure that we look at it from an individual, but also an organizational perspective. I hope that answers the question.
All right, another question that I have here, it's from Fred Brown. Fred wants to know, to what extent has the global pandemic confirmed the need for R&D and AI and robotics in the mining environment, not only as backup, but as a principal approach to the complex geotech environment?
So perhaps, and that's a huge question, a very good question. The fact that people are affected by a virus, and we've all just recently seen how quickly you go from an organization that's running on 8 cylinders to one that stalls and gets locked down, and therefore absolutely in the longer run, I believe research and development and technology will play a more significant role in stabilizing organizations. But perhaps I can really expand on some of the issues that transpired through COVID in terms of, let's say, becoming a digital first organization. And I think it's well known that we have sponsored universities and research and development, especially through DigiMine, well before the COVID pandemic. But the executive during the COVID pandemic, together with our board, broke away, and it became very clear to us that not only do we need to embrace digital technology, innovation, and actually work towards remote working and so on, but we actually adopted what we call becoming a digital first organization. And many of you would have seen that in simple form. That means we have been able to stay engaged, been able to communicate through lockdown, through our IT systems, and all credit to our IT department for ensuring we're all connected. We've been able to embrace virtual work, virtual meetings. This is a classic example of a webinar or an event where we can open the spectrum to so many more people that we've been able to level the playing field. So I don't see going back to a pre-COVID environment at all. These are just some of the simple examples of some very quick steps we've taken as an organization to embrace digital technology so that we are less prone to disruption from something like but in terms of extrapolating that into the underground mining environment, absolutely, Fred, and I'm sure the universities will be working on those aspects as we embrace artificial intelligence. I can say in the last few weeks, for the first time, I've seen some artificial intelligence telling me every morning what's on the agenda, what is related to specific meetings. It's quite incredible. The acceleration through COVID has been enormous, and we will not be turning back. Hope that answers your question. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you so much for that, Neal. All right, Professor Marwala, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have obviously been thinking quite intensely as to what are some of the conditions that we need to create for our mining industry to fully participate in this fourth industrial era. One of the things that we have identified in my capacity as the Deputy Chair of the Presidential Commission on the Fourth Industrial Revolution is that the mining industry must be given its own spectrum. Traditionally, we always thought MTN or Vodacom or telecommunication companies are the only entities that require spectrum. If we are going to deploy these sensors that are communicating with one another, it is important that they have their own spectrum, that they do not have to rely on existing telecommunication companies that might add some technical delays in terms of transmission of information from one machine or from one mine to another, and improve efficiency. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you so much for that, Professor Marwala. Let me take in another question, and this one is from Sibel Otterstrom. And Sibel wants to know, from somebody who is not so well, how would you mine remotely, and is that the future of mining?
Kathy, let me that I'm not so sure what is meant by not so well, but I'm presuming what is being referred to is perhaps someone that is not doesn't pass the fitness requirements to work underground. And as we know, specifically in narrow tabular underground mining, that's a very physical job, and clearly it requires a certain amount of strength, which unfortunately is why we have a predominance of males in the rock breaking environment. As we've heard today, that is changing fast, and with the implementation of innovation and technology, which in my mind starts with digitalization, we will eventually have mines where people that are not so well will be able to control machines rather than be the machine, and therefore it opens the door to those with physical disadvantages, women in mining, and so on. But as I've said earlier, that's still some way off. But there are certainly mines around the world, and it's more in the open cast or the open pit space that are run completely remotely. They're not even operated or controlled on site. The remote control of these operations is distant from the operations, and some of the bigger mining companies, Rio and Anglo American, BHP, are all at those levels. And there's no doubt that with the right capacity, the right funding, the right partners, we will get there. And I was very pleased to hear Professor Marwala talking about our own, the amount of bandwidth and information that's required to do something like that is going to require our own spectrum, and that's very pleasing to hear that they're already thinking ahead in that respect. So I hope that I understood the question, but remote working by people that do have physical disabilities may not be as strong as those that have to work machines now is a very real possibility and a benefit of what we see in the future.
All right. Well, it sounds like the possibilities are just endless, aren't they? I'm going to invite next this question from Adenkosi Magebe, who wants to know, with the fourth industrial revolution introduction, does Sibanye-Stillwater offer training, technical skills development to general underground workers? Dawie?
I was going to say, I don't want to hog the panel, so Dawie, this is your opportunity to speak up. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Neal. Yes, we do. I mean, there's a lot of training that's been revisited, and how we do the training as well, and therefore the experience that underground workers will get in terms of using new technology as well. So Keith can talk to the approach that we've started in terms of augmented and virtual reality, and bringing those technologies into how we train and how we set up, what that means in terms of training that gets done offsite, for that matter. So there's a significant amount of new technology that we are bringing into our approach towards training and our approach towards how people develop in our organization. As well, what we do is our approach towards our communities are different. So we've got, for instance, our cadet programs. And in terms of those cadet programs, the whole approach around building a talent pool and a talent bench are going to depend on the connectivity that we bring to our communities and how we interface with our communities as well. and the people that live in these communities, and how we set those up via smaller businesses. So the approach in terms of training and the approach towards development of people needs to interface very, I say, functional with new technology that we bring on board. I'm not sure if Keith would like to add to that.
Yeah, thanks, Dawie. So this is an interesting journey because I've been around in the industry for over 30 years, and just over the last couple of months. So in some of our training facilities, virtual reality for trackless mobile machinery, which are vehicles. We're looking at augmented reality that we are busy testing at the moment. When you get to my age, you need reading glasses, but augmented reality is basic glasses with your instructions on the side, and you carry on working while you've got your instructions on the side. We're looking at e-learning. We're also using a lot more visual digital aids in terms of moving forward. Kathy, can I just check with you? Is my sound all right? Because we've got a hell of a thunder shower passing over.
We can hear the rain behind you, but you sound loud and clear. Thanks for checking, Keith.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, Kathy. So we are busy evolving, and there's not one size fits all. There's not one company who can supply this with you. So when I talk about virtual reality, a lot of you would have seen it on flight simulators, and we use our vehicles for that. And then the next one is moving into the way we do learning. So why do we need to bring people into a classroom to come and do refresher training when we could do it on a mobile app? And we're busy with development in that particular space. Kathy, I'm going to close down now because of this rainstorm. It's getting louder and louder. But I think that gives a basic idea.
Thank you so much for that, Keith. Appreciate the input there. This next question is from Maredi Motlomoja, who's asking, what risk assessments have been done in ensuring the effectiveness of your systems on reliability and ensuring minimal failures of this equipment utilization with minimal failures given power failures? Okay, there's a lot of failures in that particular question. Not sure who's going to go for it.
I suppose as an engineer, actually, please go for it, Professor. I think you might be better placed, but I will come in once you've gone.
Yeah, I think this whole area of maintenance of our key infrastructure is very, very important. And the way we have been traditionally maintaining our infrastructure is what is called, in engineering term, scheduled maintenance, which basically means every 6 months, I can't remember what is the exact period, you have to go and replace the lift cable. And when you replace it, it is still working. And you have many equipments that you replace while they're still working. But now what is emerging in the context of the fourth industrial revolution is what we call predictive maintenance. In fact, artificial intelligence enabled predictive maintenance, where you can be able to monitor the performance of your key infrastructure and only replace it when you are told that it is going to fail in the next maybe 4 days. This obviously has the advantage that it is able to extend the life cycle of your equipment, and it has a direct impact on the bottom line of your operation.
Thanks, Professor. Perhaps I can just add on very specifically from, the company point of view. So at a very high level, and Professor Marwala, covered that. We, in terms of the way we run the company, are very focused on managing risk, and we have a risk register that gets rolled down throughout the company. And one of the highest risks on the risk register at the moment is power, and the reliability of power. It's also a cost issue. And of course, your question relates to the disruptions, and starting at a high level. Specifically, we talk about Eskom, and we all know why they are in the situation they are in. So we have done a lot of work to be less. I think you will see that unfold in the next few years, and it really goes around alternative sources of energy, and predominantly photovoltaic sources with battery backup. So at a high level, that's where it starts. But of course, at system level, whether it's a winder or whether it's a machine, those risk assessments are conducted on site by the teams, by the designers, and it's an ongoing process of reducing exposure and risk. In fact, one of my biggest concerns is, and probably one of the drivers for what we're discussing now, is actually about reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. It's not a technology issue, it's an environmental issue, and we have to become less dependent on electricity from high carbon emission coal, and that's the beauty of wind, photovoltaic energy, and so on. So risk assessments are inherent in what we do, and we do a lot of them. Sometimes it's very difficult to implement changes to address the risk in a short space of time, especially when it relates to an energy-intensive industry such as deep underground mining. Thank you, Kathy.
All right, thanks for that, Neal. We're going to take the last question from one of our delegates, Fred Coward, who says that the political economy for mining is charged when it comes to technology and up or reskilling of mine workers. What can be done to help TVET colleges?
Dawie, do you want to go, or should I give it a go?
Neal, I just got the last part of the question.
Okay. No problem. I'll pose it again. Fred Coward wants to know the political economy for mining is charged when it comes to technology and either the upskilling or the reskilling of mine workers. So what can be done to help TVET colleges?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, we've got to find a common purpose. And we're going to find a way of understanding what are the purpose of those colleges. How do we ensure that we get alignment towards the outputs as well? Because at the end, it's not just about the regulations and setting the standards. It's also about ensuring that we get the appropriate results. And it starts with engaging, and it starts with having those kind of honest and very courageous and deliberate discussions right at the top, so it can flow through into actions. So I think that there are clear answers, but it starts with the first engagement.
Go ahead, Professor Vilakazi.
Yeah, I just realized that I'm the only non-engineer here. So Kathy, you and I are the only non-engineers. We physicists sometimes tend to dream big, but we let engineers worry about our dreams. Now, in terms of the value chain, is that, from the educational point of view, is for these problems, you need the entire value chain of skills at various levels. I did allude earlier to lifelong learning. What we need to do as South Africans is to have a courage to repurpose, where appropriate, several TVET colleges and make them almost part of that training platform, both in a form of a sandwich training program, which the UK did have, or reimagine them for this exploration industry called mining as Fachschule, technical schools. I think that with such challenges that we face, they can't be solved by universities, nor by even University of Technology. You need also another layer of skilled individuals, learning certification courses, whatever, to be part of the entire value chain of skills that we need. And that can only be done by properly and appropriately repurposed TVET colleges. And we're not doing anything new here. I mean, the German Wirtschaftswunder, the German, what they call it, the economic miracle after the war happened not because of universities, but because of practical schools like TVETs that were there to train and educate technical experts, technicians, engineers, tool and die makers, fitter and turners for the Germany of the post-war era, likewise for Japan. So therefore, how do we repurpose TVETs to be the TVETs that will have that kind of education for the digital miner of the future at various levels?
Maybe just to
go ahead, Professor Marwala.
Just to add to what Professor Vilakazi has said, having spent quite a bit of time interacting with people in the TVET colleges, what I have found is that the depth of technical know-how in the TVET colleges has actually gone down. So the equipment that you see when you go to many of these TVET colleges is not where it is supposed to be. So what do we have to do? I think we need to work with them. I think our industry, our industrial sector, including companies such as Sibanye-Stillwater, must actually be present in our TVET colleges. The department must consciously appoint engineers coming from those companies into the school governing boards so that they can infuse the technical know-how into these colleges. And some of the things that we ought to do is to once volunteer as part of our civil responsibility. We send people to just go and talk and demonstrate some of the things that they are doing so that people can start appreciating what is happening in practice while they are still while they are at TVET colleges. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Neal?
I think all the contributions, and maybe I can just summarize. It starts with a common goal, a vision. It involves involvement, creating ownership, and then of course you have to look at this holistically, and you require all forms of technical support, including artisans, engineers, and so on. So I think there is a role for us to play as a company in those colleges or institutions, but it's a very necessary part of being ready for the future. I would think that our partners are probably best placed to ensure that we end up with the right combination of skills. We can deal, I think, as business with the charged environment that Fred refers to, and that's really working with organized labor and government and so on. And of course, our partners also well positioned to work with government. But we have to see this holistically, and I think as a company are certainly willing to support the process.
All right. Neal,
let's just keep on that. I mean, it's very important.
Yeah.
It takes the three of us, I mean, the two institutions in Sibanye here, not have what I would call the muscle to do it. it takes the right political will to take the decisions and actually enable all the professionals and the players to do what is right. So there has to be a clear political decision taken at the higher level to say this is what these TVETs ought to do if we are to get there.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Professor Vilakazi. We've unfortunately come to the end of our program. Can you believe it? An hour and a half flying by. And thank you so much for the conversation that we've had. It's certainly been insightful. And I think there's no question about the role that the research which you're conducting will play and will contribute towards work in the mining sector. Dawie, it's on this note that I'm going to hand things over to you.
Thank you, Kathy. And yeah, thank you. I would like to start by thanking Neal Froneman, our CEO. And he is really our Chief Enabling Officer. Also, Keith Stead, who looks after the Academy and runs our employee learning and development. And then our two professors, Marwala and Vilakazi, from the University of Witwatersrand and Johannesburg. It is our privilege and a great honor to extend a vote of thanks to all of you to have contributed one way or another in making this handover event where Sibanye-Stillwater was renewing its anchor sponsorship agreements between the Johannesburg and Witwatersrand universities a success. Ladies and gentlemen, Neal, Professors Marwala and Vilakazi have been the driving force behind this collaborative process. Their collective vision, interest, and hard work has once again culminated in yet another success story in the benefit for the mining industry and the academic institutions. I wish to thank Neal, our honored guest, for making yet another commitment of providing the University of Witwatersrand's DigiMine with an additional 10 million in funding annually from 2019 to 2021, over and above an original commitment. This is the 21st century state-of-the-art mining laboratory and postgraduate research entity. The University of Johannesburg will be the recipients of an established training facility. Thank you once more for making the same two investments into the university's mining engineering faculty, which is being used to establish a complementary infrastructure that supports Sibanye-Stillwater's long-term research and development strategy. The staff of the two universities, especially those working on the DigiMine and mining engineering faculty, who worked extremely hard in the past 5 years, thank you. To Sibanye-Stillwater staff, which has been closely involved and committed to these two projects, your efforts does not go unnoticed. I also acknowledge the contributions of all those who took part in the conversation, responded to our poll questions, and provided their inputs. The attendees, different professional bodies, organizations, and representatives from the mining industry and other industries who have participated actively throughout the live webinar. We understand that you've taken time out of your very important schedules to contribute to this session. Thank you for your contributions. I also wish to thank our interns, learnership students, and university students who have attended this session and expressed their thoughts. What is decided here would have direct implications for your future, and the interest and enthusiasm you have shown is indeed a good sign for the future. Before concluding, let me express our sincere gratitude and appreciation to our program director, Kathy, for a seamless and interactive session. Thank you, Kathy. To the organizing team from HRD and the Academy and the corporate communications team, our service provider, Mail and Guardian, who work tirelessly, both in the foreground and background. You deserve our congratulations for a job well done. Thank you to everybody, and over to you, Kathy.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Dawie. Look, hopefully, the next time we have this conversation, we would at least be allowed to gather, albeit maybe still under restrictive circumstances, under one roof. That would certainly be a signal that we're heading in the right direction. Thank you all for being part of this conversation. Thank you to all of the delegates that have also been part of this conversation. Please be safe, continue to be kind to one another. We're in such a difficult time as a country, and we cannot afford to forget that we're in the grips of a crisis, and we need each other now, perhaps more than we ever have before. So continue to reach out to those close to you, continue to reach out to the communities near you, because they certainly need that now more than ever before. On that note, I think it's safe for us to say farewell and goodbye.